Our guest today on Caribbeana is Mr. David Abdullah, who is no stranger to Caribbeana. David is the head of the MSJ, the Movement for Social Justice political party in Trinidad and Tobago. David, welcome, man. It's nice to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me, Ron, and greetings to all who listen to your fantastic program of Caribbeana.
Thanks. Well, we there's a lot to talk about. You know, we just celebrated a Republic Day, but what is the general state, in your opinion, of the country? I know there was concerns about crime. Give us a little synopsis of the state of the country.
Well, yes, I mean, we had Republic Day on the 24th of September. Sorry, 24th of September. And immediately after that, 1 week after that, we had the presentation of the national budget by the Minister of Finance. The budget debate completed in the House of Representatives about a week ago. And then they went into what is known as a finance committee, where they examine each line item of expenditure in the House. That was completed yesterday, I think it was. And so the debate will now shift probably on Monday to the Senate. And the budget will have to be passed before the end of the month. We have another public holiday coming up on the 31st, I think it is, which is Diwali, the Hindu Festival of Lights. But the focus really in the country has been on crime and violence. I mean, the budget debate, shifted to the focus to economic matters and examination of whether the Minister of Finance, how he's going to manage a situation where, given lower oil production, lower gas production, and lower oil and gas prices, that how he's going to be able to deal with managing the government's fiscal situation.
Yes.
There wasn't much of an outcry about the budget. Some people thought that it would be an election budget because we are in the last year of the parliamentary term, the 5-year parliamentary term, and therefore
Right.
elections must be called within the next 12 months. But the Minister of Finance had no wriggle room to offer any goodies, election goodies,
Right.
to
Right.
try to entice people to vote
Right.
for the ruling party, the PNM. So what
Right.
he did was to try to just keep everything intact,
Right.
and therefore there were no negative measures. And he's hoping that instead of the normal giving of extras,
Yeah.
the fact that there are no negative measures will in fact help the government. There were some things, increase in the minimum wage, not across the board, but for
Mhm.
government employees who earn a lower level of pay. And that will affect, like CPEP workers, URP workers, and so on. So
Yeah.
several thousand workers will be impacted by that.
Right.
And he's offered a 5% increase to trade unions in the public sector, which the unions have rejected.
Right.
So um, there is that budget situation, but really the crime situation is what is
Yes.
worrisome.
Yeah.
So as of today, well, as of last night, um, there have been 504 people killed, murdered in the country.
Wow.
That compares to 484 for the corresponding period last year.
Yes. Yeah.
And we still have 2 full months to go. And if we are going at over 50 persons killed every month, then we will surpass the 600 mark before the end of this year,
Right. Right.
and record perhaps the highest number of people killed in the history of the country, which was in 2022, about, I think it was 612 or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
we're not in a good situation. I mean, downtown Port of Spain, Nelson Street, right next to Southeast Port of Spain
Yeah.
Secondary School.
Mm-hmm.
Rapid fire gunshots rang out at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Dang.
And, they had to dismiss school and so on.
Yeah.
People are being attacked in their homes. And it just doesn't discriminate. So an
Right.
old
Right.
lady, grandmother in Labre, not a wealthy woman by any means. She sells, little food items down in Point 14. She
Right.
was attacked by a bandit in her home a couple of days ago. She had to fight off the guy, you
Yes.
know. So it really is not a good situation. We have now had several people being kidnapped. In fact, some of the abductions have taken place with men wearing looks like police uniforms. So yesterday, the police high command instructed all the police officers to turn in their what is called a tactical gear, which is kind of a dark blue outfit and so on
Right,
that they
right,
wear. So
right,
with the exception of some special squads, everybody, all the other officers have to turn in their tactical gear and
right.
revert to the khaki, well, the gray
Gray
khaki
and black.
shirts
Yeah, right,
and black
right,
pants, right?
right, right,
To try to avoid any people trying to impersonate themselves as
right,
police officers or police officers who engage in crime, because
right.
two police officers have been charged with kidnapping and murder,
Wow.
um, which they carried out against a businessman using a police vehicle to abduct the man. Yes,
Damn, boy.
yeah.
I mean, so the
So the
police
situation
can,
is,
so therefore
yeah,
the police is unable to handle this situation?
yes. For all intents and purposes, people don't feel as if the police are on top of it at all. Um, and the government, in terms of what they said in the budget debate, has not given people any great sense of confidence that government policies, of course, the government doesn't manage the police service, the commissioner of police manages the police service,
Right.
but government policies can impact on the criminal justice system, but people have no sense of comfort. We had what we have a group called the People's Roundtable, which involves a number of civil society organizations.
Yes.
And we had a crime summit, civil society crime summit in January. We submitted major recommendations early September. And we focused not so much on policing or more militarization then, but we focused on social interventions in the schools and in communities,
Right.
because we have also had an upsurge of bullying in schools, or at least
Right.
reports of bullying.
Right.
One young man tragically took his own life going to a school near your community in
Yes.
Princestown. He
Right.
was a student of St. Stephen's College,
Yes.
which you would know because you're a
Yes.
Princestown person, right, Vaughn?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And young man took his own life, sadly, because he
Yeah.
was being bullied. So that has catapulted a whole discussion around mental health.
Yeah.
I think coming out of the pandemic and the lockdown, a lot of our school children were adversely affected by not being in school, not socializing for more than a year. And
Yes.
I think that has impacted on their mental health and so on.
Uh-huh.
But there are major socio-economic issues that must be addressed.
Right. Right. Right.
Excuse me.
Boy. You know, it's. I mean, listen to this story. It's a sad story. You know, a sad indictment, as though there's no hope. You know, but you as a party, the MSJ, um, where do you see yourselves in all of this? I mean, because it seems as though people are not. You're not getting a chance to expedite some of your policies, I would imagine.
No, it's like in the U.S. situation. The two major parties lock down the elections
Yeah.
because each one of them have their base, right?
Right. Right.
Like in the US, there's a Democratic base and a Republican base, a
Right.
MAGA base now, a Trump base, I shouldn't say Republican
Right.
base. So in Trinidad and Tobago, as you know, the PNM, People's National Movement, has their base, which, as you know, and many of your listeners know, is largely Afro-Trinbagonian.
Right.
And then the UNC, United National Congress opposition right now, largely Indo-Trinidad based.
Right.
And with the issue of money, which is another factor in electoral politics, it's very difficult for us to break through in that situation.
Yeah.
But we are engaged, and elections, as I said, are due. Some people thought there would be a November election. I never thought so. There were some people, including the opposition, that thought that right after the budget there had been an election.
Yeah.
But that is not the case. And I never thought that Dr. Rowley would do the same like Mr. Manning and call early elections. Because Mr. Manning called early elections twice as Prime Minister,
Right.
once in 95 and then again in 2010. And the
Yes.
PNM lost on both occasions.
Right.
So the election will be sometime next year. I don't know if it will go down as late as August, but
Yeah.
we will see. But the PNM also has an internal election and party conference, which should have taken place early next month. but
Right.
that has been postponed. There's been no announcement or statement about why it is being postponed. It was just a one sentence press release from the General Secretary about a week ago
Right.
saying that the conference and elections are being postponed.
Right.
Dr. Rowley is due to go to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in a week or two. So he'll be out of the country. And there's talk of at least two slates or, group of candidates contesting the PNM elections.
Right.
Dr. Rowley has hinted that he may not be going back up, but there's been no definitive statement by him.
Yes.
So we will see what happens in the internal process within the PNM, and then, of course, the general elections. There'll be major calls for Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessar to step aside, but
Right.
she has stoutly refused to do that.
Right.
And because the view was that if she did a Biden, and one major personality in the country, Mr. Martin Daly, senior counsel, highly respected attorney at law,
Yeah.
who writes a column in the newspaper, several weeks ago said that she should do a Biden, and that would open up the UNC's possibilities
Right. Right.
of winning over more people to challenge the PNM.
Yeah.
But she's stoutly refusing to do that. So we will see what the election shapes up. But we in the MSGA continue to do our work. We have our Tuesday night discussion group online. Tuesday last, we dealt with the whole issue of mental health and bullying
Yeah.
and
Yes.
intimate partner violence and so on.
Yeah.
This coming Tuesday, we are out in a community in Pitty Valley, opposite Sparrows Hideaway, where we have a community meeting, what we call a citizens assembly. So we are doing some work. And the following Tuesday, we'll be having a major discussion on the U.S. elections with some of my friends from the U.S. and Puerto Rico, discussing the U.S. elections. Right. So we continue to do that work. We make statements and so on. We had a citizens assembly in Faisal on the 21st of September, and it was attended by a number of trade union leaders. We had about 8 or 9 trade unions represented by their key leaders. We had other community-based groups attending. So we're trying to build a kind of broad-based, gathering of people who, and then the People's Roundtable has also been doing that kind of work as well. So that's what we're doing, putting out ideas, trying to set the narrative, and trying to build broader coalitions of grassroots organizations.
Right. Is there any work done with other Caribbean islands, other countries?
Well, yeah, I have I interact from time to time with people in the region around international issues like solidarity with Palestine, solidarity with Haiti, and so on. And I was in Mexico because MSA is a member party of the Sao Paulo Forum.
Yeah.
So I was in Mexico for the annual seminar organized by the Workers' Party of Mexico, which is one of the parties in the coalition in the government.
Yes.
So in that gathering in Mexico, there were many parties from Latin America, a few from the Caribbean, and so on. So we obviously interacted with parties from, not from other parts of the region. So yes, we do engage in some broader solidarity. Some people in Belize, in Antigua Barbuda, Grenada, and so on. Just on Tuesday last, there was an important tribute for Don Rojas.
Yes.
That was organized by his colleagues, and I spoke at that. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles gave the keynote address. It was a hybrid event in New York, in Brooklyn at a church, and also online. And that brought together a number of people from the region as well. So yes, we try to keep connected with what is happening in the not just the English-speaking region, but the wider region. Yes.
Right. Yes. Well, you got to keep on doing the work. Do you see? I mean, so when you look at what's happening here in the U.S. with this upcoming election, what significance do you see this impacting on the region, on the Caribbean, on Trinidad, and so on?
Well, certainly, in my view, there are many significant factors there. One is this project 2025, I think it's called, which is a kind of ideological and programmatic action plan for a Trump presidency,
Yeah.
which is a very frightening thing.
Right.
Trump's own his statements on the issue of immigration, I think, are very worrying because we are likely to see very significant deportations once again of Caribbean nationals who are in the U.S. And these are not necessarily people who have engaged in criminal activity and therefore have run afoul of the criminal law in the U.S. and therefore have to be deported on that basis,
Right.
but of people who may have been living in the U.S. for, in some cases, many years, but have not gotten their status regularized. So mass deportations are going to impact us negatively. I certainly think that some of the foreign policy positions of Trump, some of which we thought that Biden would have reversed, like the sanctions against Cuba, the blockade against Cuba, and the issue of Cuba being a country that is engaged in the sponsorship of terrorism. That we thought the Biden administration would have reversed what Trump did by executive order.
Yeah.
And Biden didn't do that, and that is putting immense pressure on Cuba. Perhaps if Kamala Harris comes in, she will be less of a warmonger than Biden. Biden seems to be caught in the old Cold War mentality,
Right.
given his
Right.
age and his generation,
Right.
and the old Monroe Doctrine. So one hopes that could be those positions could be softened. Trump would be, I think, very aggressive. For Trinidad and Tobago, there's concern that the licenses that Trinidad and Tobago obtained from the United States Treasury Department, what is called an OFAC license, to engage in cross-border gas development in Venezuela,
Yes.
that some of those things might be reversed under Trump, although the Trinidad and Tobago government doesn't think so. But if those are reversed, that will have major negative impacts for Trinidad and Tobago because we don't have any major new gas coming on stream for the next many years. And therefore, the expectation is that we would get gas coming out of Venezuela waters, the Dragon field, or from cross-border fields, some of gas in Trinidad waters, some in Venezuela waters, but from our side of the border by 2027. And that will help to refloat the Trinidad and Tobago economy. So there are some major implications there. Obviously, people are concerned about the ongoing genocide in Palestine, the apartheid actions of the Israeli state, and that is very concerning to people in the Caribbean who are for peace and so on. So some of us are paying close attention to what is happening in the U.S.
Finally, Haiti. Haiti is still going through its own woes, why isn't the Caribbean more forceful and evident in expressing support for one of their members of CARICOM?
Yeah. Well, CARICOM has been doing that, but they've been doing, and they set up a eminent persons group led by 4 former prime ministers. This was about 2 years ago. Yeah. So former prime minister from Jamaica, Barbados, Bahamas, and so on have been engaged with the Haitians. And that is how eventually there was this agreement for the transitional council, the interim council, and a president, and so on, and a prime minister. But there are major problems with that process because a lot of Haitians felt that the CARICOM, supported by the US and Canada and France, was seeking to impose a structure of governance that included persons within it that themselves, although being political, representing parties, were tied to some of the gangs and to corruption. And therefore, that created a sense of lack of legitimacy of that process. And then there's this agreement to have Kenyan police there to try to suppress the gangs. That is not working well, right? And the Kenyans now are saying they need more money. The US hasn't given them all the money, so the Kenyans haven't sent 1,000 police officers. I think only about 300 have gone. I think some have gone from Jamaica and a few others. But that clearly is not enough to deal with the gang violence. And in any case, The view from our friends, my friends in Haiti, is that that was not the right way to go about it. And so Haiti is a very difficult and complex situation, a very bad situation that is not getting better. You're right. And so there are solidarity activities on the ground, people to people solidarity
Yes,
within
yeah, yeah.
CARICOM and Haiti. And now the situation in Dominican Republic, where Dominican Republic now wants to deport a whole set of people
Back
who
to Haiti.
are Haitian or Haitian descendants.
Right.
And that itself is going to cause huge,
No
huge
problem.
problems.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything you'd like to leave us with, David?
Well, just to say, one, that, we continue. I know that the members of the Caribbean diaspora, pay close attention to what is happening back at home in the region. And so, thanks to you for keeping this kind of information and dialogue, and exchange of analysis going. It's
Right.
very, very important that the analysis is not simply from and information from the traditional media sources.
Right.
Like, if we depend on only the traditional media out of the
In
West, we
trouble.
would have never known
Yeah.
what was going on in Gaza for a long, long time.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So what you do is very important, and keep it going, my brother. Keep it
Thank
going.
you. Thank you very much. I've been speaking with David Abdullah, who is the head of MSJ, and we've been talking a bit about the Caribbean and the implications of world affairs on the region. This is Ron Martin. Caribbeana continues.